Hey, it's Joe Solari here from Chicago, and
And Craig Martell coming to you live from the subarctic.
Craig, it's good to see you. How you feeling?
It's good to be back. It's good to be alive, which is a low bar, but it's the one I got.
Yeah.
So no, I had a bunch of medical appointments yesterday, and I've they've had, the doctors have the data, the cardiologist. So I'll get an appointment for some heart surgery and hopefully December, and we'll get that taken care of before the Christmas break when we go down under.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, and back from the show and then right into holidays, so that's always crazy too. It's
Yeah,
one of those things where Susie and I were saying it's like summer camp, right? You're like you enjoy the time there and you never want it to end, but you really do want to get home and sleep in your own bed.
yep. Well, and then and come back. And the good thing about Thanksgiving so soon after the show is you can decompress. You get back to the day job, or you go do what you need to do, and then Thanksgiving allows you to take your focus away. But then also you have time off because it's generally a 4-day break for most Americans,
Mm.
and you can go get your thoughts under control, get your focus set for 2020, which is what we're talking about. Because if you haven't made the cash by Thanksgiving, you're not going to see it in 2019.
Amen. Yeah. So that's the topic for today, 2020. We're going to talk. Why don't we start off a little bit and talk about 2020, 20 books?
We've got just one show in 2020, and that is 20 Books Vegas 2020, November 10th to 12th. I put out a post this morning on 20 Books to 50K, as well as 20 Books Vegas 2019 and 20 Books Vegas 2020, those Facebook groups. And I'll open up registration on February 29th at 9 a.m. Alaska time for 1,500, 1,600 people. I figure we'll sell out in about an hour. And Bob's your uncle. And we'll have a wait list, but I can't guarantee anybody from the wait list can get on. It will get into the show.
Mm-hmm. So we had some great guests this year. It looks like you're already lining up some cool stuff for next year. I saw you had some comments about kind of doing some stuff with some different tracks and kind of a different
Yep.
organization. You want to talk a little bit to that?
We looked at this year and saw that the industry folks really wanted to have meet and greets to talk to the authors there. But with the influx, since all of the industry comes to the show because it's the biggest gathering of self-published authors in the world, I didn't want the show to degenerate into an industry unique event where you came and just went and met with various industry. So what I did is we set up a Monday session, 9 to 5 or whatever it might be, where the industry folks will have booths and you can stop by and talk to them anytime on Monday. We've got the hotel rates from Sunday through Friday.
Okay.
So you come in on Sunday, preferably Monday, you stroll through, you get your badge, you go meet with the industry folks you want to meet with. They'll be there for like 8 hours. And then we're not taking show time away for people to go to talk with the industry folks.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's an integral part of your business, but I wanted a way to integrate it without taking away from the actual heart and soul of the show, which is indies talking to other indies about how they've succeeded.
Yeah, and that's always a tough one with shows, right? Like you have folks there that are there to support the industry, and they come there, and you want to have people go see them, but everyone's running around going to events, and they don't have the time, or you're trying something to force people to go into a room where you have booths.
Yeah,
That's never. I mean, I've been to enough of those, like the oil and gas industry. It's like they always put the alcohol where the booths are, right?
Yep.
Hoping that people will go in there. But no, I think that's a great idea, and I certainly I think it's going to get harder and harder for people at that show. With even with the few days you have just purely for the conference talks to decide what you're going to go see. Right? There's so much good stuff there.
But we'll record everything. There won't be, except for private meetings, which of course that's their private meetings. But everything else, we'll record all 5 conference rooms. except for if we have a private meeting, and one of them, like I did last year, I had a couple that were closed door with the science fiction fantasy writers groups. But outside of that, next year we'll record everything, so people won't have to decide. They can do something separate and have their own meetings, because we had a lot of those sidebars. We'll try to get Ram's Head Bar open from noon to 2. I'm not going to try to ask them to open it for 24 hours. I don't want to commit to that cost. And also, my personal belief is people shouldn't be drinking at 6 in the morning. So,
well, it's not like there's
the bars are open.
Yeah, the folks that want to do that, there's more than enough choices in the city of Las Vegas, right? Like you.
Yep. So we'll go like noon to 2 a.m. We'll ask for that if we can.
Yeah. Cool. So the other thing I think is important with just coming off a show is like absorbing what you took in, right? Like you drinking from a fire hose. What is it that your thoughts about how people can, make the most after a show?
There was so much information, and especially if you went back and watched the other sessions that you didn't go to and just watched the videos, which the third day videos are coming. We have them recorded. They're not up on YouTube yet, but they're coming. All right. They're in the Facebook group. You can pull them out there, but the best thing to do is you prioritize based on your business. What is the one thing that will deliver the most impact that you think to your business? So you pick that one thing, you implement it, and then you find the next thing. It's the Pareto rule. 80% of your results will come from 20% of your efforts. So find that 20% that's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck. So good consultants speak there, but that's what you need to do. Find those one things, because maybe it's building a newsletter. So then go focus on what you need to do for that, whether it's write a reader magnet, and then how do you put that out into the world to build a list. Or if it's your business, you have to take a look at your cash flow. Like right now, you might be looking at, geez, I'm going to have a lot of expenses in December. Well, then you're going to have to pay them in December, and you didn't get that money with November sales. It was October and September sales that gave you the money to pay for your December promotions. So if you don't have that money now, you're going to be sucking. You're going to be sucking for paying Facebook and Amazon their money to promote your stuff, and everything's going to cost more because you're competing against trad. So I dropped prices on a lot of stuff this month, but I already set up a lot of those promotions, and I use those terms differently. Marketing is your overall campaign. How do you get this book in front of people? Promotions are where you run a discount, and you have a paid newsletter or run some very specific ads like BookBub ads for 99 cents. And then ads are just whenever you put something, you can advertise full price. And I have a lot of full price ads running right now as well. But the promotions get the boost, so you get some algo love, and then they point people back to other books, and the backlist, read through, make sure you have that link in the back matter. All of those things, are you doing them, and what's going to give you your biggest bang for the buck? Find that, and especially if it's not time consuming, like making sure that your book 1 has a link to book 2 once you've written it. Because when you first write book 1, you may not have a pre-order, may not have any idea. But don't forget to go back then once you do have a link for book 2 and put it in right after the end on book 1. And same thing with all your books. And this is me, right? I've got over 100 books. I've got a lot of books that don't have a link to the next book. And I got a review in the last week saying, I can't wait for the next one. This was from a series that's done. So
Oops.
This is a 9-book series. Like, oh my God, I've got this reader hooked. Took the time to give me a review, and they don't know that book 2 through 9 are out. So that's a failure on me. So that's easy to do. Just got to jump in, do it, re-upload, and Bob's your uncle.
Yeah, I think that, when I come off of any kind of conference, 2 things come to mind. One is, what's the one thing that I heard that would be most effective in my business that's like a skill, something that I can get better at over time. Like maybe I'm not even doing it now, but like if I start doing it and I continue to do it, I can get better at it, so that it's something that will not only like impact the business today, but can improve. Just pick one. Don't worry about everything else. And then I think the other thing that gets overlooked a lot is the network, right? So like, what can you do to make the most out of that event? Like you spend a lot of money to go to a place like Las Vegas where, for some folks, on the introvert spectrum, this was a really big deal to go do. But you've gone and done it, and you've met some people. So, take those business cards that you've gotten, right, and email those people, right, just to connect and make sure that you get some kind of connection, right? But don't be like friending everybody you met there, right? Like make sure those connections are stronger connections, right? These are the face-to-face people you met. And then the other part of it is look like, and this might be something that can be done in those groups, is reach out and figure out who is there that is from your town or near you, right? Like there's no reason why you can't build stronger bonds with the local community and get that in support of that broader community, right? So I'm in Chicago. So, when you think about the Chicago metro area, that's 6.5 million people. There's a few people, I know most of the people, but there's more and more every day that I can connect with and make sure that are, in my network.
Yeah. Well, there's a Pacific Northwest group that meets once a month, once every other month, something like that. So yes, always encourage people to connect, but of course in real life it's different. Make sure they're not creepers, and meeting in groups is important for your sanity and safety. Go to a Cracker Barrel and hang out. And talk books. It's refreshing.
Well, and we're in this world where social media is prevalent, right? We didn't have these tools when you and I first got started in business. It was, you had a Rolodex, right? Like guys that knew how to work a Rolodex were like power networkers. Now there's all these tools to make it more fluid. But what people, I think, forget is it's still about relationship building, right? It's still about figuring out like, okay, here's the people that are in my network. What can I do for them, right? Like the way a network works properly is, you pay into it with your social capital, right? And then that reciprocity comes back to you in ways that, either you explicitly ask for or in, more of a karmic way, right? So I think that's that part is what gets lost in today. It's like, well, I just, I'm on Facebook. It should just work. It's like, no.
Yeah.
Because
no, it takes an active element. Yeah.
So, so we got a big show in 2020, and 2020 is what, less than 45 days away.
It's coming soon, man. Coming soon. And registration is, less than 90 days away. Mm-hmm. So the money you're making in November is what you can use for your registration in February.
Yeah. So that's one thing that we're doing in our business with our authors is like, we're now at a point where we can clearly see how much money is going to be made in 2019, right? We're wrapping up the months and we're getting payments. So we know the real, because we run everything on a cash basis, how much cash is going to be there. And we're doing our planning. And I had mentioned before we got on the calls, like, we fortunately we have clients that are in a position where they have not only a lot of money in their business, but they have the kind of money where they're thinking about how they can do retirement. But we had to go through an exercise because based on our plans for 2020, we needed to limit the amount of money that could go into tax-deferred retirement because we need that cash to run the business. The businesses get bigger; they need more cash. So, your first inclination is, well, I don't want to pay it in taxes. Well, you may need to pay some taxes, or you may need to, pull forward some expenses. That's another way of kind of deferring the taxes. If you need, like you use a lot of examples as like covers. Like if the covers you need for 2020, you've got the money in 2019, you could buy them in 2019 so you can expense them in 2019, right? So those are the kind of things that should be going through a lot of authors' minds right now. But I'd love to hear the kind of things that are going through your mind for 2020, 2019 ending.
To end 2019, it's all about the money that was made previously in order to finish up on a high note. And going into 2020, the decks are clear. I owe nothing. So the covers, I've got pretty much all the covers I need. So 2020 is about stacking cash, rebuilding the war chest for a further move next year, for whatever I might do. I'm going to start a new series because I've drawn back to just me writing, not really doing collaborations, and rewriting. I've got a adventure mystery series that I'm going to rewrite, and then we'll relaunch that and hopefully see it get better traction. We've got new covers on it already. All of the stuff you talked about regarding cash flow, I spent that money now. So 2020, I've got almost no overhead, and we'll be launching, 30, 40 books, even though a lot of them will be a relaunch. So, but new covers and new look and new genres and a whole new approach. That's what 2020 is bringing for me, as well as the time to do the writing, because I'm only doing one show. 4 shows this year was just traumatic on my heart and on my time. So next year I'll have a lot more time. I have people hired to help out with 20 Books Vegas. We'll keep them secret, but I'm going to pay them, and that'll count for some of your ticket cost. But it's all for the greater good, so we can have a better and better show, more moving parts, but pretty much address what anybody needs. The show can't be all things to all people, but it can be close.
Well, I think that like any industry, what's going to happen is there's going to be different shows that develop, right? Like, I've been to several shows now, and they have different feels, right? They have different audiences, right?
Yep.
There's show, and I think that the one thing that this has it's more inclusive. There's people there that haven't written a book. There's people there that have made $1 million with books, and having that together is important, just as it's equally important that they be separate at times, right?
Yeah.
The folks that are doing really well, those shows are hard on them because everybody is on trying to draw from them stuff, and they want to give it, right? They feel they need to give back, but when you're in that situation, it can be grueling. They also need times where they are at events where they're just with their peers and they're focused on higher level, bigger issues. I mean, like the stuff we were talking about earlier. I mean, we've got clients where they're running $500,000, $1 million businesses. That's not a cottage industry anymore, right? Yeah. Like those are real big issues as far as when you're running a business that size, and when you make mistakes, they get to be some big, expensive mistakes. So, and just because you're at that level doesn't mean you have that experience. You need to be around people that have had that experience and can talk about those things, as well as, just some of the things that we're all discovering about the opportunities, right? This is all uncharted blue water.
Yeah. Yep. It's wide open, man.
Yeah. So, cool. So, as far as I know, are you planning on kind of sharing with people as you wrap up your taxes at the beginning of the year, or?
Oh, you bet. I'll share every month what what things look like for earnings and what I pay out in expenses. I pay a lot of additional stuff that draws down my taxes, but that a normal person wouldn't spend. Like an author who passed away, I've given his family like $20,000 of various things and I just called it advanced royalties on works. So it's it is tax deductible in that regard, and they get to pay taxes on it because, say, it's considered advanced royalties. But it's still, I have spent a lot of money this year, but then again, I've made a lot. This year has been pretty good. I haven't had a single breakout winner, which I'm disappointed that I had 3 or 4 new series this year, and they did okay. One of them actually did abysmally, but that was the mystery adventure series. Needed new covers, needed rewriting, so we'll take care of that. But the other ones, I had no breakout winner, and that was the big anchor, the sea anchor that held me back, because I thought I was going to be able to hit $500,000 this year, and I had 2 series positioned, but they just never took off. So we'll relook at that. But it's a new series. The one series that is doing well, we're going to keep pushing forward with that. I'm going to wrap up 3 different series, and that'll clear the slate. So I'll have my one series that I'm writing, and then it'll be open for a new series, paranormal space adventure. So that's a crossover between 2 hot and available genres. So
cool. Yeah, I have a book right now with the editor, and it's focused on author business. So I'm taking a lot of this stuff from my first book and cleaning it up, and then really consolidating it around the system that Lisa and I have come up with. So that'll be ready for folks in Q1. The idea being, that's really a good time to kind of get a lot of this stuff set for 2020, right? New decade, new year. And, I think for myself and Lisa, the past 2 years has been a great learning experience to really understand what's relevant and what isn't for authors at different levels, right? Because there's some stuff that we would focus on, and then you just kind of figure out, like, you know what, it's just not really that relevant to the business. So don't even worry about it. And then once people scale up to a certain point, then they need to start thinking about these other ideas. But just generally speaking, for authors that are listening to this, understand that what happens April 15th gets decided in the next 45 days, right? There's some things you can adjust, like you can make some, contribution. If you're a sole proprietor and everything's on that one tax return, you can make some adjustments. But if you're running an S corp or an LLC where you have a separate return that you're going to be filing, that stuff wraps up sooner. And once that business locks down, it's going to impact everything else. So really think through. This is the time, if you haven't been doing any kind of end of the year planning and prior year planning, just give it a shot. Like give it a half hour of purely focused time to think through what you want the end of the year to look like and what you want, the next year. You go back to our first episode and we joked around about how many people are going to be complaining about taxes in April, and it happens every year. Every year.
And it's funny, and I laugh every year because we spend the whole year doing these shows and online telling people, oh, by the way, don't be crying come April 1st when you realize you owe $10,000. Hey, congratulations on your success. Too bad you didn't plan for success.
And that's another key point is if you had a year that's been a windfall year, like a magnitude shift from before, you need to really seriously look at your taxes in December. We've had a few clients that's been the case where, like, and this is just what people do, right? It's like, hey, I had an accountant who gave me an estimate. I've been sending those estimates in like I was supposed to, but they never, and then they come to us kind of late in the game and they're like, well, I never changed anything. And we look at it, it's like, well, here's what you have to get prepared for, right?
Yeah.
So, and writing that check in December has to happen because it is going to relieve you of having to pay any penalties. And if it's, there's people that are writing, 5 and 6 figure tax checks this month.
I was going to say $250,000 tax checks. Hey, congratulations on your success. But if you pay your estimated taxes based on $50,000 and you actually made $1 million,
yep,
you owe a lot of money.
Yep. Yep.
And now if you pay estimate, you're not going to get hit with a penalty, but your estimates next year will be 110%
Yeah,
of
110.
what
That's
last year was. So now all of a sudden quarterly, you're going to be paying, 80 grand every
yep.
quarter. So you better make some damn money.
Yep.
Keep moving forward.
Yeah. So that's the other part that a lot of folks, miss out on is like, okay, I just wrote this Whopper check in December, and Whopper is relative, right?
Yeah.
If you made $50,000 and you had only made $1,000 the year before, that 5-figure check is a Whopper, right?
Yeah.
But then next, in January, you got another one you got to write, right? And now it's that 110%. Now you can adjust as you go along.
Yep.
If you're, but here's the thing, you have to be tracking your performance, right? You have to be having quarterly results to say, okay, yes, my profits have increased or decreased, to show that on the estimate. Otherwise, you're just stuck to what happened the year before, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's the kind of stuff that's not fun to do, right?
It's not fun. That's the best way to put it. It's not fun at all. And the worst part is, it sucks the life out of being successful if you haven't prepared for because the tax man is coming for you. No matter where you live, the tax man is going to get their fair share. Fair being relative statement. They're going to take a cut of your earnings. So if you're making 1,000 and all of a sudden you realize wild runaway success and you're making 100 grand each month, you better be setting aside 25% at least of your profit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that's your earnings after costs, because you can, and make sure you can deduct those costs. Don't give yourself 100% of everything that happened during the conference, because some of those might only deduct at 50% rate. So just understand what you're going to be able to deduct and get close. It's okay to write a check for $5,000 if you've made $1 million in a year. It's not okay to write a check for $250,000.
Well, one of the things I covered in the presentation, the beginner's presentation, was if you're just coming into this and you need a rule of thumb, if you know your effective tax rate, that's great. But if you don't, use 40%. So if you have $1 profit, 40% gets set aside. That's going to be taxes. Of the 60 cents that's left, take 10% of that, take it out of the business. Take it and use that for whatever you want to use it for, right? Because you paid the taxes on that. That went in the 40 cents, right? So that's your money back. You're starting to get some of your money back. And then what's left over, that 54 cents, that can all be reinvested back in the business, right? If you're just trying to get a feel for this and you're new to it. Now, it doesn't have to be that clear cut, but I like to at least say, take some of that money out, right? Too often, everyone's like, I'm just going to plow it all back in. You have to remember you're an investor in this business and you should be getting a return out of it. Even if it's just, 6 cents on the dollar, take that, right? It's going to make you feel better and you're getting money off the table.
Yeah.
Now, again, those numbers, that's just real rough. Like there's so much that can change in that equation based on your deductions, based on if you're doing tax deferment with retirement. That all makes sense. But if you're just like, I don't know what to do, the money's coming in, I'm not in a position to do anything right this minute, just use that formula to know that you have the cash ready, because that's even worse, is like you get to this time of the year and you realize that you owe $90,000 in taxes and you don't have $90,000 in cash.
Yep. Right? Yep. That's building up your cash reserves is always important. And that's when I first started publishing, I had a year's worth of cash reserves and I've maintained that. So I am in a good position in that regard, and I'll keep adding to that over the next year, but next year should be fairly high in taxes, whereas this year I had a huge amount of expenses to set myself up for 2020 and also for books that didn't pan out. So they didn't necessarily earn out their costs. So next year I expect I'll have high taxes, but because of this year, all my estimates, I'm going to get money back. So I know that already with what I've paid in, and I'll look at it and say, okay, cool. I'll probably set all of that money aside just in case, because I expect to be paying a lot of taxes next year, even though my estimate should go down. My
Mm-hmm.
estimated tax should drop because of this year. And then, okay, I'll take that smaller number, but I will put in extra funds because I'd rather not look at that money. And I know some people will say, well, if you're giving the government a free loan, I just want to break even. I want to owe them nothing. I want them to owe me nothing. I just want to keep everything right at zero if I can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's also a misconception folks have because they come off of wages. It's like you're obligated to pay your taxes on a quarterly basis.
Yep.
Everyone is. And that's what happens with withholdings, right? Is they take it out of your paycheck per pay period, but then that company sends that in on a quarterly basis.
Quarterly basis, yep.
Right. And if you're doing your own payroll as an author, you know that, right? Like you're sending that in on a quarterly basis to the state or the federal government. So it's not like an end of the year thing. It's like they're expecting money all year long.
Yep.
That's when people get into trouble, and then they look and say, well, based on our estimate, we think you should have paid us this back then. So this is what we think the penalties and interest should be. And now it's your job to negotiate that down, right? Like,
and nobody wants to do that.
No.
Because you're not in a superior bargaining position when the IRS comes calling.
Nope. And, the folks that I've had, you've sent a few folks my way that have had issues. And, most of it is misunderstanding or misconception, sometimes on the IRS's part. In most cases, the biggest penalty is not the cash. It's the time wasted getting it fixed. Like, because you're the one sitting, waiting, listening to music to get somebody that is going to bring something up on a computer, and hopefully they can find your case and they're the right person. It can take months to get this stuff resolved, sometimes years. And by the way, if it's not, their assumption is like, you just owe us the money. So like, if you do have something that goes in your favor the following year, they're just going to take that money.
Yeah.
Right.
And as I had two IRS issues this past year. One was I got audited for a nonprofit that I ran and closed like 3 years ago. But I forgot to check one box on a form, and that rated an audit. That took me 8 hours. Now, I had all my records. I had all my ducks in a row. It took me 8 hours of my time, focused time, and then a few follow-up phone calls. And then also, when I sent in my estimated taxes, I sent them in on the wrong form. So also important to know what you're doing. I mean, because I have an accountant, and I asked her, and I didn't pay attention to her answer, so I suffered. And so that was a few more phone calls to the IRS to say, hey, I don't owe 20 grand in taxes. Where they said, hey, you owe 20 grand. I'm like, I paid 20 grand. And they were missing the exact amount because I put them in on different forms. And you think, well, IRS, it's me. Yeah, well, it goes into a different pot of money and it's lost. So they found it and put it back in, and I was cool. But time, effort, and worry. Yeah. Because if they didn't clear that, I was in a position where that's my cash reserve. I don't want to donate all 20 grand when I already paid it. So you got to get past that concern, and it's best to have all your ducks in a row and do it right in the first place to save yourself the grief.
Yeah, and having those records, if something does happen, if there is a mistake, to be able to pull that stuff out and show them and not have to recreate it, know, that's a big deal. And just time savings. It could be whether you get a book out on time or not.
Yep.
Cool. Well, it's been good. Did you have anything else you wanted to hit the folks up with? Any words of wisdom?
Some final words of wisdom, because now is the huge, they call it Black Friday for a reason. Black Friday is when businesses go into the black on the year because there's sales. They bring the people in. They make a lot of money on those days, even with the huge discounts, because they'll sell out of a certain product. People will be in the store and still want a big TV, and they'll pay the full price for that one next to the one that was on sale. So Black Friday, this is where the retailers come out in full force. Understand that. And with the traditional publishers and other booksellers, they're going to be pounding the airwaves with everything to sell their books, which means Amazon is going to accept higher price bids and stuff like that. Because I was looking at my author rank and I see it's dropping, and I'm looking at my sales and I'm like, hey, they're kind of actually creeping up. So disconnect the two. Don't get fixated on your author rank. Look at your bottom line. Your bottom line shouldn't be changing depending on who you're marketing to and who you're targeting with your ads. And if it drops, you might have to accept that unless you have cash reserves that you can dump a bunch of money into ads to then wrestle with traditional publishing. Just understand, come December 26th, they'll be gone, and then you'll be back on an even base in regards to your stuff. So don't look at your rank and say, oh, my rank's dropping, I suck, when your actual bottom line may be the same or even better. Just understand that it comes around every year. It's the same year. And especially on Friday, next Monday, are going to be huge in regards to traditional publishing, hitting the ad campaigns and marketing. You won't even be able to bring up Facebook without every other post being an ad of some sort. So make yours stand out if you've got them, and otherwise, don't sweat it. Don't try to throw a lot of money at what might not be a problem. So those are my final words of wisdom.
Those are some great points. I think that you really think through your advertising strategy, because driving traffic to Amazon is not an issue. There's going to be a ton of traffic on Amazon. You don't need to help there.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of people shopping and looking for stuff. So think about where you're spending your money. I know we were just talking before we got online, the work I do with my father-in-law's store. We have a massive campaigns to for this period of time. Like this, we come out of, it's a home brewing supply store. So we come out of the Oktoberfest season, which is our biggest thing. And then we go right into holidays. So this is where we really make hay. And we think we're respectful of the community. Like, we don't send out advertising on Thanksgiving, and we haven't started sales already, but our competition has been, pre Black Friday sales for a week now. Right.
Yeah.
So that's out there. The other thing you reminded me of. So one of our clients has launched a book in November, and it got into the top 100 in the whole store. It's actually in the top 10. And, there's some even more significant traditional stuff going on, like the Dean Koontz books dropped.
Yep.
Right. So that's Amazon really focusing on some strategies that they have. Mm-hmm. And when 5 Dean Koontz books drop in one day,
yep,
like, it's to your point exactly, is rank changes significantly. Sales could stay exactly the same, right? And oh, by the way, something for authors that are really performing high and up in that level is like, think about this, is when you think about like, oh wow, I really love to get to this rank, the top 10, which is a really big deal and makes you lots of money that month. To go from 10 to 9, they're logarithmic functions, right? So there's two things to think about that. One is how hard it is to go from 10 to 9, right?
Yeah.
That could be the difference of selling another 100 books per day.
Or 1,000.
Right.
I mean, it's huge numbers.
Yeah. The other part of that is understand how much more market is left, if that's what's the capacity to do, right? It's like, if it's safe, in your example, 1,000 books a day to move from a single digit rank to another, somebody's doing that, right? Like the market's there. So don't think that like when you get to that level, there isn't more to do, but it's a lot harder. It isn't just going to be throwing ads. Like, it's a whole nother function of your business that you have to look at, like when you're in that level. And when you're at that level, and I don't want to call it bad luck, but it's certainly luck. Something like that happens where, a traditional publisher drops a big name author. That's like, just suck it up, Buttercup. That's the deal.
Yeah.
Right.
Like Dean Koontz, I did look him up yesterday, and he's number 1 overall in the store.
Yeah.
And those 5 books were Amazon original series. And one thing Amazon doesn't like to do is Dean Koontz, you look at his Penguin or Random House books, it says #1 New York Times bestselling author, Dean R. Koontz. But if you look at the Amazon, instead of #1 New York Times bestselling author, it says Amazon Original Series, Dean R. Koontz. So same author, but Amazon, they hit that hard, all 5 of those. I pulled up my affiliate account, and all of his were in the recommended for you. Mm-hmm. So, of course, Amazon is promoting him, and you cannot replicate that. You cannot spend enough money because Amazon will always play their trump card. They've got Dean R. Koontz. They probably paid a lot of money for his original stuff, and I don't even know if they're short stories. I think they are, but
they
still,
are short stories, yeah.
You can't beat that. So just accept that if you launch it when J.K. Rowling launches Harry Potter book 8, you're not going to win. And winning is, as long as you're doing better than you did last week, you're
Amen.
fine.
Yeah.
Look at your bottom line.
Well, and think about what Amazon is. So first off, it's not one big conglomerate marching in lockstep. There's while they are all funded and under the same banner on the stock market, the publishing companies are operating as their own profit centers, and they're trying to figure out how they keep themselves performing well. So they're doing some really smart things. They're doing some dumb things too. Like they're making some rookie mistakes. You can see it. But what they're trying to do is put themselves in a position so that they can win big name authors in the future, right? Like that's going to be their competitive advantage. And they could be losing their ass on this Koontz thing. And they're okay with it because they think that it's going to put some patina on this thing, that they're going to get 5 more authors like them and they'll make their money on that, right? Or they may be able to get you or some other indie author that's really doing well to come over because they're going to be able to provide that extra magic that gets you to that next layer up, right? And how you deal with that, those are high-class problems to have to sit and figure what you're going to do.
Yeah, those are tough because Mark Dawson, that's what he said. Thomas and Mercer on his new series has like right of first refusal. And he said they probably won't pay his price, but he's also gotten 6-figure offers for this one book for the audio rights. Mm-hmm. And so he's in a really, really good position for negotiating, and then said, I'll probably still just publish it myself anyway because I think I can do better than what they're going to offer. So how do you beat that? That's where you're in the driver's seat when it comes to making your revenue.
And, because the way these deals are presented now, maybe it's something where you say, well, I'm going to go that way for a period of time to get that experience and to get them to promote my books in a way that I can't, knowing that this is probably not a long-term strategy. I'm not stepping out of my indie position. It's just I'm going to use this to lever this thing up. Especially in the situation where I talked about it in the advanced session, is with audiobooks specifically. There's an IP grab going on, right? These companies are looking to get titles, and if they're prepared to overpay because they're competing with each other, who are we to get into the way of them overpaying?
I'm good with them negotiating. Yep.
Right? Like, understand that maybe in the future that isn't the case anymore because they all, half these guys bust out because they've overpaid for stuff. That doesn't stop you from right now getting overpaid for your content. You just have to have a long game approach and understand. Don't think that like, I'm going to get all these deals and that's going to be it. I'm done. Because it could be another situation where in 4 or 5 years' time, half those guys are out of business.
Yep.
Right? So, just be thinking through that whole process. Those are my final words.
And there we are. Hopefully, I hope you folks have a great listen. Happy Thanksgiving for the Americans, and enjoy the time off. We'll shut the group down Wednesday and Thursday this week just because give everybody a break to collect their wits.
Yes.
Get their action plans in order. Pareto rule, find that 20% of the effort that will give you 80% of your result, and put it into practice. That sitting there looking at your computer doesn't give you results. Doing things give you the results.
Amen. Amen.
Gives
Happy
you
Thanksgiving to you.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
You have a great one.